The sayings of the Sufi sages. Sufis are not concerned with secondhand knowledge about God, but with a personal experience of God. For Sufis, the outer form of religion are merely vehicles for the spiritual content that lies behind all rites and creeds. The Sufis may seem to be esoteric and mystical, but in actuality, they are trying to point us to something so obvious that we miss it. God is everywhere and everything. We are God. There is nothing but the oneness of God. It is only our own sense of being a separate ego that obscures the omnipresent truth. Sufism is simply about seeing things as they truly are, a realization that is available to all. The word Allah combines the roots al and la to express the oneness of being and nothingness. God embraces all opposites, as it says in the Holy Quran. He is the first and the last, the apparent and the hidden. He is the soul of all souls, as Rumi puts it. He is not confined by any one creed, but is the one God who speaks through all genuine religion, manifesting himself in different ways appropriate to the individual seeker. The Saint Qadir quotes, Allah is non-being and being, existence and non-existence. He is the relative and the absolute. All these concepts return to Allah, for there is nothing we can comprehend or write or speak about that is not Allah. Then Qadir goes on to say, whatever you think concerning Allah, know that He is different from that. See, and that seems to be a apparent contradiction. At one point he says there's nothing you could speak about that is not Allah. And then in another breath he says, whatever you speak, it is not Allah. So this, unless one has realized it, one wouldn't understand what he's saying. Because at one point he's saying anything you look at is Allah. Then another point he's saying anything you look at is not Allah. Meaning Allah or the God cannot be confined to any one thing. He is all things. All things are contained in Him, through Him. There is no thing that exists that is not Him. Yet He is not limited to any one thing. This is what He is pointing to. Ahmad ibn Allah says, everything is a signpost to the oneness of Allah. Ahmad ibn Allah goes on saying Allah Akbar, God is most great, doesn't mean He is greater than something else, because there is nothing else for Him to be greater than. It means He is too great to be perceived by the senses, and too deep to be understood by the intellect. Too great indeed to be known by anything other than Him. Only God knows God. In the Quran, Surah 50 verse 16 states, God is nearer to man than the jugular vein. Meaning God is so close, He's closer to you than you are to your own self. And when you realize this, or you realize God in you, it is only that which is the God in you that realizes itself. It is not you, your thinking mind or your body that realizes it. It's the highest, most part of your being that realizes itself and then you merge into that. You, in your whole being that you believe yourself to be, dives into that which you truly are, and then you begin to live as that instead of as this body mind that you believe yourself to be. Anyone who has had this realization all speaks of the same experience. Ibn Arabi states, "Don't hang on exclusively to any particular creed so that you disbelieve the rest, or you will disregard much that is good and miss the real truth. Allah is omnipotent and omnipresent and is not contained by any one religion. For he says in the Quran, wherever you turn, there is the face of Allah." And again, being bound to creeds and not open to others, you blind yourself from truth. Traditional Sufi saying, "The ways to God are many as the breaths of human beings." Meaning there's many ways to the path of surrendering to God. The Sufis understand with the heart what most learned scholars cannot understand with the mind. Rumi states, "One thing must be forgotten. Forget all else, but remember this, and you will have no regrets. Remember and be concerned with everything else, but ignore this one thing, and you will have done nothing." It is as if a king has sent you on a mission to a foreign land to perform one specific task for him. If you do 100 things but not the appointed task, what have you accomplished? Human beings come into this world for a particular purpose, and if they forget it, they will have done nothing at all. And that's from the Sufi Saint Rumi. This is from Ahmad Allah. He says, "Allah has a garden in this world. Those who enter do not yearn for the garden of the world to come." And this is the same thing that Jesus said in his gospel, is that the kingdom of God is within you. It's already here. Well, if you seek that, you will not yearn for anything else because you have found all. You have found the all. Again, Ahmad Allah states, "Embrace all creatures with love. Don't say, this inanimate thing has no awareness. It does. It is you who have no awareness. Let all things be as they are, and be kind to them with the love of the Creator in the midst of his creation." Sufi saint or Sufi sage Sufyan Thawri states, "If you are more pleased when someone says what a good person you are than when they say what a bad person you are, then you are still a bad person." Meaning you're still concerned with the ego. And as long as you have an ego or a limited sense of a self, you are still separated from God. Sufi sage Jalali states, "Sufism is truth without form." And really, absolute truth is without form. It is only handed down in the relative world through forms of books and holy scriptures and saints. And people take these forms to be the truth. But absolute truth is the formless. This is why God has no form, because God is the truth, and he is to be realized within man. Sufi Saint Bistami states, "People who think anyone is lower than themselves still have pride." Abu Susi states, "The truly sincere act is one that is unknown to any recording angel, has no demon to oppose it, and no self to take pride in it. Sufi mystic Sadi states, when Laqman was asked from whom he learned goodness, he replied, from those without goodness, because what seemed unbecoming in them I avoid doing myself. Rumi states, children on the path drink the milk of the Quran and understand only its literal sense. The mature have their own understanding of its inner significance. Hakim Jami, another Sufi, states, many of those who strive to overcome pride are hoping to puff themselves up with this triumph. Muinuddin Christie, quote, the qualities that endear a man to God are river-like generosity, sun-like affection, and earth-like hospitality. A traditional Sufi saying goes like this: someone who seeks God through logical proof is like someone who looks for the sun with the lamp. Hujwari states, a path has no value when you arrived. Exactly, and when you have arrived, I mean, most people teach the path that they took, but that's not the only path. And so you realize that paths really have no value when you get to the so-called destination. It's almost like if, I believe there was a Buddhist saying that said, you know, once you cross a river with a raft, you do not carry the raft on your back once you reach the other side and walk with it. You leave it behind because it is no longer necessary. The path or the way across has no more value. That which you use to get there has no more value. Shabbastari states, the world exists only as an appearance. From beginning to end, it is a playful game. Ahmad bin al-Atta states, the hearts of those at the end of the path are occupied continually with the remembrance of God. And it's that they dwell in the being that they truly are continually. They no longer dwell in the illusion of a separate self. The mystic poet Rumi states, all your suffering comes from desiring things that cannot be had. Stop desiring and you will not suffer. Al-Qadar states, wherever you find yourself, whether in worship or in ordinary life, contemplate God. In what you eat, what you drink, whom you marry, always aware that He is both the contemplated and the contemplator. He is all, which most people, it's hard to comprehend and not understand. Ibn Arabi states, when you realize the mystery of oneness with the divine, you will know that you are no other than God, and that you have always been and will always be beyond every time and place. Then you will understand that all your actions are His actions, and your essence is His essence, and all your attributes belong to Him. The soul then understands that it does not see God through itself, but through God, so that it is not the soul which loves God, but God who loves Himself. The soul sees God in all beings, but only because it is God who is looking. He is the lover and beloved, the seeker and the sought. Rumi states, the one that brought me here will have to take me home. Hafiz, another Sufi sage, states, you yourself are your own obstacle. Rise above it. Rise above yourself. And what does he mean by your own obstacle? It's because you are stuck in the illusion, and trust me, it is an illusion that you believe you are a separate individual self confined to a body. But it must be this way for the play of life to exist. And so you have to break free of this illusion. And the way to break free from the illusion is to examine who or what you truly are. What is always permanently there with you. Your body is not always permanent with you. Your thoughts are not always permanent with you. Find out what that is. Al-Qadar, the Sufi saint, says, there are two types of death. One which is inevitable and common to all, and one which is voluntary and experienced by the few. It is the second death which the Messenger of Allah prescribes, saying, die before you die. Those who die this voluntary death are resurrected. All the business of their lives return to the oneness of God. They see God through God. As the Prophet said, on him be grace and peace. You will not see your Lord until you are dead. This is because it is through this death and resurrection that everything becomes nothing, and only one thing exists, one reality. For initiates, whatever will befall a believer after physical death is prefigured in this life. This return of the many forms of things to Allah and the end of their becoming is only a change in perception, not in the reality. For someone who dies and attains resurrection, the many are one through an essential unity, and the one is many through his many aspects and their relationships. Hajj Bahuddin, another Sufi mystic, states, you are a droplet of water from an infinite ocean. And meaning that droplet is infinite. Bayezid al-Bistami states, I didn't take a single footstep toward God by being with the pious or the warriors in this cause or those who pray excessively. So I asked God, how can I reach you? God said, leave yourself behind and come. Al-Hallaj, another Sufi saint, states, love is to stand before your beloved, stripped naked of all attributes, so that his qualities become your qualities. Ahmad ibn Atta Allah, quote, don't think you are veiled from Allah by something that is not Allah. There is nothing besides Allah. You are veiled from him by the illusion that there is something other than Allah. And that's really been, this is the veil, that you think you are something separate from him. And you must lose the sense of this separation. And it is only through seeing through the separation and going to your source. The Sufi sage Qadir states, God has stolen my false I, or my false identity, and brought me close to the true I. All colors have returned to pure white. The journey is over, and nothing but God exists. All attributes and relationships have been erased. The primal state has been reestablished. All right. And Rumi states, and this is the last saying, don't think that saying I am God is proclaiming one's greatness. It is actually total humility. Someone who says I am the servant of God infers to God and himself, whereas someone who says I am God negates himself. He relinquishes his own existence. I am God means I don't exist. Everything is God. Only God exists. I am nothing. I am utter emptiness. This is complete humility, not arrogance. But people often misunderstand. When someone says he is God's servant, he still sees himself as a doer, albeit in God's service. He is not yet drowned in the ocean of God. When he is, there will be no other such things as his actions, only movements of water. And so with that, we'll say peace and shalom.